I would like to extend a warm welcome to all members of the Audit Committee, officers, and any members of the public and press viewing today's meeting. I am Councillor Alan Alvey, Chairman of the Audit Committee. I would now like to hand over to Democratic Services to read the housekeeping note.
Thank you, Chairman. Please note that this meeting is being broadcast live on the Council's website and on YouTube. It will remain available for a minimum of 12 months. Please switch any mobile devices to a silent setting for the duration of the meeting. If the fire alarm rings, please use the nearest fire exit and go to the fire assembly point in the car park. Thank you.
Okay. For the benefit of those watching the meeting online, please would members introduce themselves during the meeting, if not already introduced by name. Can we have apologies?
Yes, we have apologies from Councillors Ward, Levitt, Jack Davies and Emma Lane.
Thank you. Item 1 on the agenda is the minutes. Can we approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 27th of January, please?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Item 2, do any members have any interests to declare? No. Item 3, there are no members of the public present. Right, we're now going out of order. Item 14, the Housing Benefit Subsidy Report, which I'd like to hand over to Ryan to introduce the item.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to introduce Liz Thomas from KPMG, who undertook the audit of our annual housing benefit subsidy.
Okay, over to you, Liz.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Ryan. Hopefully my presentation is now available for everybody to see in the room.
Yep.
Lovely, thank you. So what I've done, just to run you through the process, is a broad introduction of the work that we've done, the context for it, and then just to walk you very, very briefly through the findings and to allow time for questions at the end of my presentation. So you're probably aware that the Council is required to have an annual review of its housing benefit subsidy claim, which is submitted annually to the DWP. Our work that we do on the housing benefit claim is set out by the DWP and is pretty prescriptive and covers areas such as checking that you've applied the correct parameters within the housing benefit system from the DWP for the year 21-22. That we've checked the subsidy claim was prepared using the right version of the Northgate software. We then moved on to sample test claims to check the calculation of benefit entitlement and to make sure that it was all supported by evidence. And then we undertook testing over the modified schemes, the war pensions schemes payments as well. So moving on to slide 2 with a bit more in terms of specifics, we tested the benefit cases for what are known as headline cells on the form, and that's 20 cases from each of those cells, or 20% if there's less than 100 cases. And they are shown there. They're cells 11, 55, 94 and 225. We also are required by the DWP's rules to undertake testing, which is based on findings from the prior year, which was 2021. So we actually were required to undertake testing on 5 additional areas over the claim form, which meant that in total we tested 229 benefit cases from the claim you submitted for 21-22. In terms of the findings, these are split out into different appendices in the report, and what we report in Appendix A is anything which has resulted in an overclaim or an overpayment of benefit. So out of the total subsidy claimed in the year of 27.6 million, we found overpayment errors totalling £840 across 7 cases. And as it says there, these related to the incorrect assessment of either rent, earned income or self-employed income. We are then required to extrapolate these overpayment errors across the populations of the cells in which they are found, again using a very prescriptive method from the DWP, So the total reported extrapolated figure, which we put in our report, was 15,948. We found underpayment errors in 7 cases, and also errors which are slightly different. They have no impact on the housing benefit paid and the housing subsidy received by the council, but we are also required to report those. Underpayment errors are not classed as errors from the DWP's perspective, so we're not required to do any extrapolations or any further reporting or work on those other than to just explain them and say what they are in the report. And then moving on, we also, under Annex B of the report, we just have to put our observations which have come about as a result of the testing. So we tested within cell 225 and found 1 case where benefit had been underpaid, and we found an overstatement as a result of a war pension being added twice. In the latter case, because that was a subsequent error that which we found as a result of our testing, we were not required to do any extrapolations or further work over that for 21-22, and it will become the subject of testing in 22-23. That is again following the DWP's strict procedures. And then just to say, in line with prior year, we are required to find the approval of the modified schemes process from full council, but because this was approved so many years ago, we are unable to see the original minute because it's probably long gone. So we gain our comfort over the fact that the scheme was approved through signed representations from the Section 151 officer. So that's the end of my presentation. So if I unshare my screen and just invite any questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody who have a, yes, Hilary.
Hi, Hilary Brown, District Councillor for Linters. You mentioned about the errors there. What percentage of the 20% was errors, and is that high or low?
I'm sorry, I missed out. What percentage of the 20?
What percentage of the sample that you looked at had errors, and is that high or low compared to other councils?
I think I would say out of the 229 cases, we probably found errors in total across sort of 10 of those cases. I'm sorry, I haven't worked out the percentage in that much detail, but it is relatively low in terms of the number of errors. Yes, in my experience.
Thank you.
Okay, I have one question, and I don't know whether it's for you or for Ryan. You said you found 7 underpayment errors. I would like to know what action was taken for those.
I can pick that up one. Yeah, so where we identify an underpayment, we will go in, recalculate the claim, and the additional entitlement will be paid out to the claimant.
Okay, can you give us any feel for the quantity of the underpayment?
They were all, most were very small, some were just a couple of pounds, some were under £100, so not big,
Okay,
big numbers.
Not big. Okay. Has anybody else got any questions? Okay, well, thank you very much for that. You're free to, you can stay and watch, or free to go.
I'll leave the meeting, but thank you very much, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Right, we now come back to item 4, which is the external audit results, which is Kevin.
Thank you very much, Jim. Good morning, members. So the report in front of you today is our results report from our statutory audit of the council's account, taking into account also our wider responsibilities to have a look at the arrangements of value for money. So how you were deploying your resources in terms of giving the taxpayers and other stakeholders an assurance on efficiency, effectiveness, and economy. That's the third one, in how you're using those resources. The key purpose is for you to be able to take this report into account in your next couple of items on today's agenda, to look at the governance statement and your financial report, so you know our views when you. So the key message from me is that the audit remains ongoing. The team have completed a majority of the work and nothing significant has been raised. So we have a lot of sections in here of a lengthy report because it contains issues I have to bring attention under auditing standards or the code of audit practice. But in general, we are finding good quality set of accounts, no problems with the arrangements, no significant issues that we need to take care of. So probably about a cleaner bill of health of a report like presented very lately. We're at a position now where we have a significant amount of review to undertake either by the audit manager or myself. That the team have significantly pretty confident now in this position that we will be issuing an unqualified opinion on council's accounts, but we do have to go through those final review processes, which is going to take just a little in order to sort out. So the two issues I did actually want to highlight for your attention from today's audit regard observations for the improvement of the account or the efficiency of process. So in section 4, on page 27 of today's pack, we've identified about 16 disclosures that are immaterial or unnecessary in our view. Local government accounts are long and complex, and trying to weed out information that isn't required would help reduce their length at least. Whether it might help the wider reader's understanding is debatable, but if we can actually get rid of information that's not necessary, at least we stand a fighting chance of being able to concentrate on items that are, important in terms of understanding. So we have fed that back, and we really would encourage officers to take a look at the template for next year and get rid of disclosures that are immaterial there. Secondly, on section 8 in page 36, we made an observation about journal entry processes. So we take a download of all the entries from the year with the council's trial balance. And what we've observed is there are a high number of entries, over 4,000 manual journals smaller than £500 posted across the year. So, does the council really need to be making that many journals for small value items? Can it look and do something potentially different? We also see that you've got a number of journals being recharged through the year to business units through budgetary codes, which goes on through the year. In other authorities, we see sometimes that's just being done in one at the end of the year. So again, we're posing the question, does the council really need to do this? Would it save time by not doing it? Would it be more efficient if you didn't do it? So we're posing the question, asking the officers, have a look at that. Is there something you could potentially do to challenge yourselves? Is it required? If you feel it's required, if it's appropriate, if it works for your budget management, then fine. But we thought we would raise the question at least. So, other than that, nothing this morning to bring to your attention. Just to highlight again that the audit does remain ongoing. If anything should emerge, we would absolutely make sure we bring that back to the accounts team, section 151 officer, and at the very least, Councillor Albie in his role as chairman of the committee.
Very much. Just picking up on the second of your, do you want to address that, Kevin?
Yeah, Chairman, I can do, but obviously, today's the first I've heard the detail of some of those items that are in there. And obviously, it refers to here about each of those journals taking 10 minutes. I think having heard this morning that these are some of our monthly recharge ones, I've just assured the committee that effectively all that means is open the spreadsheet, push a button, it loads itself. Right. They're not journals which are actually typed in, they're set on a spreadsheet and they're loaded each month. Clearly we can have a look at whether we do want to continue to do them on a monthly basis or look at them annually. And until now, I think you've thought that it aids our monthly reporting to have monthly charges going through. Clearly we can look at that, but I don't think we would be not doing it on the basis of the amount of time it takes, because the time is immaterial. Because I think the choice when I initially read this, they talked about manual journals. My interpretation of a manual journal is when you sit there and you type the debit code, you type the credit code, and an amount, and a narrative, etc., etc. And so, whereas all this is just simple up most complex.
All right. Okay.
So that's that. And I think go back to the first point as well with regard to the notes, the 16 items. We have already discussed those as a team. We've had different opinions about whether they're important to the reader or not. I think we've already agreed there's some that we can take out, some we can merge. But I think the feeling was that obviously we only knew the detail of those the day before this paper came out. What we didn't want to do was change our 21-2 accounts and get ourselves in a mode with that. So I think we've agreed with Alan that we will certainly take into account some of those items at least and take them out for 22-3.
Okay, thank you for that. Has anyone got any? Yes, Anne.
Yes, I'm Councillor Anne Sevier for the Fordingbridge ward. Yeah, actually on page 31, I just wanted clarification. It says whole of government accounts. It says we have not yet been able to perform the procedures required by the auditor. We do not expect any issues because we fall below a threshold. What is the threshold? And just a little bit of background would be very nice as to how this all works.
Sure. So the National Audit Office set out an instruction to auditors, and the threshold for undertaking detailed procedures is either income or expenditure or total assets greater than 2 billion. So you fall well below that. So what we have to do at the end of the audit is essentially fill in the return. We have to report what those final numbers are. So hence we can't do it because we haven't landed on the final numbers.
No, we haven't.
And then we also have to make any other observations about the quality of the accounts of which the NEO should be aware. At present time, we have no such observations, but we can't actually do it and fill in the form until we finish the audit.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That just to explain that a bit.
Yes, Councillor Brand.
On page 24, it talks about fraud and reviewing fraud. I just wondered, was anything covered, or how do we manage smaller amounts of fraud or finding smaller amounts of fraud? Because it talks about large numbers of fraud. For example, staff being able to write off their council tax bills or something like that. How do we manage that sort of thing? Do we look at that at all? I say it because I worked in a company where people did that. They wrote off their gas bills.
I think do someone may remind me here, but do we not have a fraud report from Ryan?
We do, and we were expecting that at the end of May.
At the end of May, so I think we'll get a report. So hopefully we'll be here at the end of May.
But this just seemed to cover really large amounts rather than.
It does, because we're looking at fraud in terms of misreporting of the council's accounts.
Yeah.
So in terms of what you would do for that example of somebody writing off their own council tax bill, you should have appropriate checks and balances in the system. So that's Alan Padoon's responsibility as Section 151 officer to put in terms of that internal control framework, and that would be where we would look to our colleagues at Internal Audit to be at least taking a rotational view through those systems to make sure nothing of that nature is happening.
Thank you.
So that's where the whole sort of system of governance and control comes together, that should give you the assurance on top of a rather higher level of work that we do to give you some assurance that this is not occurring in this authority.
Thank you.
I think it's the further assurance on that. I mean, all the reconciliations that we do are independently done. You don't get somebody who's actually doing the council tax does their own reconciliation. We do have different duties, different people. So if someone's written off the council tax, then in theory there'd be an imbalance between the council tax system and financial system and all your bank accounts. So and there must be ways of doing it, I'm sure, but hopefully we've got certain procedures in place.
Many moons ago, I remember sitting next to somebody that it turned out that they'd been wiping their quarterly gas bill out every time I worked at British Gas. So it's,
make a note of it and okay. I've got just one comment, I think, rather than a question, and that is, I think we should just note that, I know you're almost finished with but it's a year now. I mean, since the account, we're talking here about 21, 22 accounts, and here we are in end of March 23. I don't know if you want to just make a comment as to why it's taken this long. I mean, is it a problem at our end, or is it a staffing issue at your end?
It is a national problem that is affecting the entirety of local public audit. The majority is affecting local government, but it's also impacting to the NHS, National Audit Office, higher education. There are significant reviews taking place that I could refer you to in terms of the Public Accounts Committee, who have been seeking information on this in the last couple of weeks. A very good summary actually was presented in terms of where we are, but it's fundamental through the whole system. It really came to a head during COVID, when a number of authorities' accounts were delayed because they had to put people on other matters, so that created a backlog. There are accounting issues that affect other bodies, such as infrastructure asset accounting, that have caused significant delays. There are problems at certain authorities that just cannot produce a decent set of accounts, and so take thousands of hours and chew up our time. There are issues with the complexity of local government accounts, with the specialisms required and the ability for us to train and retain the amount of people to work with that specialism. You can't just parachute an auditor in and expect them to look at financing requirements, for example, when they don't have relevant experience. So the issues are multiple, they are complex, and we are not at the point in time at the moment where we can see a simple and quick resolution to this. We're working on it. We know it's not a good position, but it's fundamentally, when it comes down to it, demand at the moment means we are having a number of audits back, and we are not hitting target dates for the end of September or the end of November, as they may be, and it's not going to change in the short term, I'm afraid.
Okay, well, thank you for that. It's an honest appraisal. Thank you. Any other questions from anybody? Okay, well, thank you very much, Kevin. I know you've got a personal issue to attend to, so
yes,
I'll leave it to you. You can stay or go as you.
I'm going to stay for the next couple of items.
Okay.
Obviously, if there's an issue with the accounts or the annual governance statement, we need to know about it. But I will.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, we come on to item 5 on the agenda, which is the final annual governance statement. Kevin is going to talk about this.
Chairman, just a very, very brief introduction then. As the covering report says, the committee probably recall actually considering the draft annual governance statement for 2012 on the 31st of May. And I think obviously what it also says in here is that there's a requirement to keep that up to date until such time as the audit has been signed off. So again, so effectively, if we had our accounts signed off in September, then this would have come in at the same time. So what would have come in the same timeline. So there's very few changes. And I think it says in the report what they are. They've been highlighted in bold, and they basically just reflect, I think, sort of job titles and structure changes at a senior management level. Okay. Other than that, everything is as you've seen it back in May.
Thank you for that. Anyone got? I've got a question, or not a statement, I think, rather than a question, which I've raised with Alan Bassoon, but I shall raise it now, and that is items 8 and 11, where we talk about training for members, requirement on continuous improvement and development, and under 11, the audit committee meet regularly and training is available to all members. Now, I'm going to stress again that I think the training provided so far has, in my opinion, has not been adequate. And I think when the new council is in place, we need a proper training programme for members.
Chairman, if I could just say, I know you've discussed this with Alan Bethune in the past, and we do have in the members induction for new members and for existing members a date of 26th of May for audit committee training, and there will be financial training on the 9th of June. And obviously the annual treasury management training, which we're invited to as well.
Has been going on. That side of it has been going on.
We've taken it on board.
Okay.
And,
all right. Thank you. Just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, Chairman, can I just add to that as well? I mean, obviously, I do recall several times with changes in elections every 5 years. I've been here quite a long time now, and each time we do offer financial training when the months come in. As you say, it probably isn't a great deal happens thereafter. I mean, irrespective of what Alan has said and all the things that he will put in place, I mean, if any member wants anything to do on finance, then please contact me. And somebody from within our team would be more than happy to do something specific for any member. You know, if there's particular areas that you like to concentrate on that isn't covered by the overall training and does, just as I said, please, I'm sure Alan would be more than happy for us to take on board for any member on any committee if they require it.
We've had training on risk register and things. Past.
Yeah, I just feel, perhaps I'm talking personally, rather than perhaps everyone feels happy. Yes, Anne.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Anne Sevier, Fordingbridge Ward. Yeah, I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. When I first came onto the committee, it did take me a little while to realise where the outside bodies which we have sitting with us actually interact. So to understand what an internal audit was and what everything else was did take me a little time. I did have to work at it, and I think just the very basics would be very helpful, I think, for all members, not too much detail, because you may be lucky and that your next committee member sitting here may be auditors or accountants, but they may not all be. And they need to understand, I think, how it all slots in together, and how what interested me was how everything was checked on, made sure everything was right, and that I felt was an important thing to understand. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Brand.
Yes, I remember having the training when we first in 2019 when we were elected, which was good training, but you don't know what you don't know. As you go through, you suddenly think, oh, I don't really understand that bit, and I don't get that bit. So it's not until you sort of start reviewing the reports and get a bit more in detail that you then sort of start to understand more. So maybe it's like a refresher after a few months or a year or something, because then you've actually read some of the reports and had a chance to think, I don't understand what that means. Yeah. It's quite a lot to take in that first lot of training.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good point. Thank you.
Is it possible, Mr. Chairman, just throwing this out there, that at the end of every committee meeting, we actually have 5 minutes for anybody to ask questions about anything as like a Q&A?
What do you mean internally?
Yeah, internally after a meeting, so that anybody says, well, let's just, I'm just offering it something, because I'm picking up on the point about continual training. If it's something, I don't know, I'm just throwing there as an opportunity at the end of each meeting is to say, has anybody not understood how this worked? Because they wouldn't want to say it in public.
No, switch the cameras on. Okay, thank you very much.
There was just a couple of minor things. My observation, I think, is in the report you say there's a new council leader who was appointed, but you don't say Jill Cleary. But when you talk about there's a new chief executive, you always have Kate Ryan written after him.
Chairman, I've only picked up the report again last night and read it this morning. It's not one that I've been involved with, and I've picked up exactly the same point. Yeah. I wonder whether that in April 21 that refers to the change from Barry to Edward, and I think maybe there's another note. I would think, particularly as it's gone on.
Yeah,
this time I put an exact note there, so I think I'll speak to Alan if that needs to go in. We can.
I've you finish.
And the second point I had, which is on page 56, which is work has been ongoing with a specific report elsewhere on this audit committee. This report will be a standalone item. So
sorry, which item?
This is on page item 18.
Oh, item 18. Right, thank you. Oh, I see.
Yeah, it says on this audit committee agenda, but this report will be it's a standalone report. So how will you know which agenda you're talking about?
Yes, I see what you mean. Yes, it's a point. You understand that?
Okay, I'll pick it up again. I'll talk to you.
Just picking up on your point about the change of leader and this sort of thing. When we come to the annual financial report, I want to be kind on that, because I found it very difficult, but Alan says he has to do it this way. So, but we can talk about it then. Okay, so anything else? We can move on to item 6, which is the final annual financial report. Again, this is Kevin.
Yeah, again, Chairman, very brief introduction again, and just to say that, again, members will recall in July 22, you saw the key financial statements were presented, and as Kevin has just said to you, we've had a clean image on that, so there's been no amendments at all to the key financial statements, which I'm pleased about. Obviously, but what you're now seeing here is all the supplementary notes that go behind that, and I'm happy to try and answer any questions if I can on those. Again, remembering that it was. I'm doing this year's one in a week's time, so the memory might not stretch back that far, but we'll do what we can.
Okay. Well, I have a couple, but I'm just going to see if anybody else. The point I raised with Alan, I think it's worth saying, because Councillor Sullivan has raised it, at the head of the report, which is year ending the 31st of March 2022, I don't think the chairman of the council was Councillor O'Sullivan. The leader of the council was not Councillor Cleary. Chief executive was not Mrs. Kay Ryan. But I'm assured by a Section 151 officer that he has to do it this way. So I just want everyone to note that. Because to me, it's not correct, but I don't know what else we do. Okay.
Chairman, again, my understanding is that the names on the top of that, and Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, the names on that page will be those at the date that it's signed. So
well,
if you were to sign that today, those are the names.
That's what Alan said.
Yeah.
But to me, it
doesn't feel right.
It doesn't feel right.
But effectively, it's those people that are signing off the accounts.
Well, they're not, are they? I'm signing off the accounts.
You only sign off the accounts if we sign them off at the time you were the chair.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
So if we hit May,
it's very difficult. It's difficult. I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, I found it. I wasn't happy with
I understand the point, though.
Can I just raise, I had one issue, which is a minor issue, I'm sure, and that is on page 72, General Fund. Second paragraph says the 2021-22 original net budget requirement for the General Fund was 18.868 million. Now, when I look at the table underneath original budget, that figure doesn't appear. Is there a reason for that? Or is it that it's so long ago that it's lost in the mists of time?
No, Chairman, it's certainly not lost in time. It isn't an error. I think it's more about presentation and what I'm trying to say. I mean, this particular table is intended to try and simplify things a little bit and put something there. And obviously, what that's done is caused more confusion, hasn't it? Which hasn't helped. But again, what I can actually say to you is, if you see the 19291 figure in column 1, which is say the general fund budget, the issue is actually that the 423, the number below it, council tax support grants. If you take that number off of the 19291, that is the figure that's 18.868. Mentioning that. And again, the reason it's done like that is because, I mean, strictly the figure is 18.658. But what Alan wanted to do was, because of the presentation, the way he'd set the budget up in the first place, those grants were shown below the line.
Right.
So he just wanted to continue the presentation, because with all the monetary reports we've given you through the year, we were using the 19291 as our base.
Okay.
But I fully understand that is not obvious. And I think, as Alan said, well, we will
look at it sure
next time around. Yeah, I mean, we will make sure this year's accounts, that the figures that are quoted above are easily visible in the table, because that isn't helpful. Then I agree.
Okay. Has anyone else got any other questions? I've missed a recommendation or two. We have a recommendation to approve this.
Page 51.
61.
61.
So are we happy to approve it?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Right, we now come on to the internal audit progress report. It is Anthony. You want to kick off, Anthony?
Thank you, Chairman. I'll hand straight over to my colleague Liz, who will run through the progress update.
Yes, I'm just finding it in the papers. Sorry, it's quite a large report. Right, so yes, if we look at page 187 of the progress report, this report is giving internal audit progress up to the end of February. And as you can see from the performance dashboard there, we've got 65% of the audit work completed up to draft report stage, and the remainder is we're on track to get all that completed. On page 188, we've got the live actions, so the actions that are currently pending or to be completed, and we've got 9 overdue actions there, which a small number, it's not huge, so that's gone down recently, so that's good. On to page 190, just to confirm that we've had no limited or no assurance audits issued since our last report in December. And then below that, we've got the rolling work programme, which shows where we're at with each review. And as you can see there, we've got the remainder of the work is currently, it's either in field work or it's sort of in the review process before we get the draft report issued. On page 192, we've got the adjustments to the plan. There's just a couple that are new for this committee, and they're the last two on the page there, information governance and emergency planning, both of which have been removed from this year's plan and out there. So a bit of a whistle-stop tour for you there, but happy to answer any queries anyone's got on the progress report.
Just on the got the builder control is the one red. Why?
There's a brief update on page 188. What that relates to is a requirement, again, it's a little while ago now, so I forget which particular standard it is, but there's an element of your building control activity that you need to publish each year, so it's available for people to see on your website. So effectively, it's like an annual statement, an annual account in effect that needs to be produced, that needs to be published. That hadn't happened, but I understand that the account for last year and the account for this year are being prepared, will be approved by ENT in April, and then both will be published. So it will address the original observation that was made in relation to last year, but they'll also be sorting it for this year as well.
Okay. I've got one point, but I don't know whether you're going to be able to address this. And this is the audit reviews removed from the plan. And down the bottom, you've got emergency planning, and the reviews deferred. I mean, you know, it's a bit worrying. That does this mean we don't have an emergency plan?
No, it's at the time they were trying to appoint people to those posts, and there were several audits ongoing with the relevant service manager. So it was requested that we defer the audit to next year to basically give her the capacity to be able to facilitate the other audits, and then we'll undertake this year. It's quite interesting. I've just been doing a review of emergency planning from Hampshire County Council's perspective, obviously the leading authority on this, and as part of that it confirms that all of the local authorities that have to have an emergency response plan, those plans are there. So I've actually seen it from the other side, but it's really just making sure that there's the right officers in post to be able to facilitate these reviews. So on whichever one it is, two agenda items time, you'll see that that is in the plan for 2023-24.
Yes, but okay. I know it's not. I don't know who. There's no one here, I think, would be responsible. But I mean, it'd be nice to have assurance that there is an emergency plan. Just the fact you haven't been able to audit it is you know, is another issue. Okay. All right. Anyone, anything else? No? Okay, well, thank you for that, Anthony. We now come on to the item 8, the charter, which I think is.
I'll take that one, Chair.
Yes.
So it's one of the documents that we're required to bring to you each year for formal approval. It outlines our roles and responsibilities, your roles and responsibilities to a certain extent. It outlines how we'll treat the information that's given to us, that we won't use it inappropriately. It gives us free and unfettered access to all records. Yourself, Chairman, if needed, as the chair of the committee, and obviously the chief executive as well. The charter, in all essence, bar a couple of immaterial updates to reflect our changing partners, is completely the same as it has been for the last 5 years, because the standards haven't been updated since 2017.
Yeah.
So probably not too much more to say about it. It is what it is, and it's quite a dry document, but I can't do a lot about that, I'm afraid.
So this is something that comes up once a year.
Once a year, it's a requirement on the public standards.
Yeah. Okay. Everyone happy with that?
I'm just pleased it says the chief internal auditor's got to be professionally qualified.
I guess, yes, yeah. As is my colleague as well. You're lucky. We sit for college together many moons ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've approved that then. Okay, thank you very much. And now we come on to the internal audit plan. Excuse me. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. So I was just scrolling through to the paper. Thank you. So yes, this gives our proposed internal audit plan for the forthcoming financial year, and also gives you an indicative plan for the following 2 years. Hopefully, give members the confidence that we do. Obviously, try to look at most things over a sort of 3 to 4 year cycle. So when pulling the internal audit plan together and shown for you on agenda pages 210 to 211, there's a lot of factors that we take into account when we're putting the plan together. So one of our starting points is obviously strategic and operational risk registers. A lot of the key policies, strategies and papers that have gone through the various committees to keep abreast of all of the developments that are happening. Results of our previous work, for example, the follow-up on areas that were previously a concern, obviously the work of other bodies as well, external audits and anyone else who's giving you assurances. And we met with all service managers to really gather their views and throw everything into the mix to make sure that the audit plan was aligned to what we feel the organisation's needs. When throwing that all into the mix, we then come up with the proposed plan that's provided for you on pages 212 through to 18.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting when we throw everything into the mix. The plan, you've got an agreed plan of 400 days. It come out well in excess of 500. There's just so many things that.
Sorry, well in excess of how many?
500. So it's what we do here. So what we've tried to do is obviously to make sure it's maximum coverage where it's going to be possible to try and combine reviews. So, for example, the review on programme and project management. That was deferred from 22-23. There's a big waste project that's going on in and around the initial mobilisation to move over to the new waste arrangements. So if we can combine those 2 reviews, it'll give hopefully assurance on your programme and project management framework, as well as giving you assurance over the waste areas. If there's a particular focus or an indicative scope that's specific to that financial year, we have included it in there, and also indicated when we propose to do the audit work as well. So again, when you receive our regular progress updates throughout next year, you'll see whether or not we're on track or not.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm happy to obviously take any questions about any of the specific reviews or the process we went through.
Anne?
Yeah, Councillor Anne Sevier, Fordingbridge Ward. Yes, page 215. You've got a lot of TBC. Is that just because you don't know how many days you're going to need next year, the year after, and the future?
Well, the IT multifaceted one. The IT environment moves so quickly. We don't tend to look too far forward in that area. Also, there's a revised new IT strategy that's due to be approved fairly soon. So clearly, a lot of our audit work will be aligned in around that new IT strategy. And the outgoing IT manager, when the plan was being discussed, didn't want to additionally commit potential replacement to the audit plan. But we would, of course, pick all of those IT audits up with the relevant people throughout our regular liaison with them. So it's not that there won't be coverage, it's just we're not determining what that will be at this stage.
Yeah, thank you for the answer. That explains.
Yeah, I had that question. And you've actually triggered a little comment. The 400 days that you show here, is this the total for the 3 years?
No, that's the annual plan.
So that 400 then really should be under 23-24, should it?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. Yeah,
okay.
It's in the wrong column. So no, that is the.
So that is that. So the fact you've got TBCs for future years, that can still be then picked up within whatever the allowance that's
the 400 days. And not wishing to jump around, but with the previous paper, the internal audit charter, what that gives me the right to do is say whether or not I feel I've been given sufficient resources in order to do our role. And you may remember from last year's committee, when New Forest originally joined the partnership in 1819, the plan was originally
1819. Oh yeah,
1819. Yeah. It's not 1819. Well, I'm not that old. I feel it at the moment. No, when you originally joined in 2018-19, the plan was originally set at 470 days, and actually last year I proposed to the committee that that's just too big. It was not necessary, and that we could reduce it down to 400 days. However, if there's a particular need to agree additional resources in any of the years, then again, that's all outlined in the charter and there is a mechanism for it. But I think the 400 is going to be appropriate. It's just there was a lot to look at next year.
I think that's good to hear that you're happy that the 400 days is
absolutely
satisfactory.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's good. Anybody other?
How many's in your team? How many do you involve in this?
We do. So as with external audit, the audit market is very challenging at the moment to get people. So if we're at full capacity, it's around 60 headcount officers. We're actively recruiting to that. Mainly to reflect sort of new partners and new businesses that sort of join the partnership, but there's a lead in time of about a year for those making initial contact to it going through the relevant channels to being approved. So then what we try and do is obviously recruit accordingly during that process.
Okay, good.
You have to get some of your retired people back.
That's funnily enough has been a particular issue for us because we're or going back sort of 10 or 15 years when austerity first sort of kicked in, there was a big instant the tap was turned off of new people coming into audit. So by its very nature, it made the age range go up a little bit, and quite a few of those have either during post-COVID decided that either they wanted to retire early because they could do, or they've looked elsewhere for different careers, or actually reached the non-retirement age. So a lot of the staff members we're currently recruiting, it's making me feel old now. I used to be one of the young ones, but I've been in audit so long now, I'm now one of the yeah.
Right.
Enough said.
We could make comment anyway. I'm going to keep quiet. So the recommendation to approve this plan, are we all happy with that? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we then come to the CIPFA Financial Management Code, item 10, which Kevin is going to speak to us on.
Chairman, this is a report on an update on progress since you saw the figures point in July. You can see most of the items now covering in green, so if they're done, a couple of the items are in orange, so there's still some work to be done on those. I think we're going back to the same points we've made on the previous papers linked to training, which are obviously aims and assurances we put in place as soon as the new council is appointed.
I did speak to him and he agreed that under B3 Part 2, further action required, where it says enhanced financial training and support for portfolio holders, he was going to change that to chairman, portfolio holders and chairman of committees and panels. I think, you know, unless you know something, you can't ask the right questions unless you. So that is one change I would like to see. Anybody else got any questions? Okay.
Oh, well.
So there is, I think we just note it. No, we don't. We note it, don't we? Recommending to note, so everybody's happy. Right, we now come on to item 11, which is a long running saga. So, you're going to.
I'm going to give you an update on payment card industry data security standards compliance at New Forest District Council. I'm pleased to report we've made some good progress towards PCI compliance during the year. We've implemented 4 new PCI compliance systems for taking card payments at information offices, over the web, automated telephone payments and also agent referred payments. Which has effectively de-scoped a lot of card payments for New Forest, which means that personal cardholder data never enters our system. It is entered, processed and stored in third-party systems that we've confirmed are PCI compliant. However, even with the most compliant systems, if you've got a member of staff that doesn't understand the rules on how to implement them and how to ensure that they aren't breached, they could easily, well not easily, but they could inadvertently compromise the cardholder data. So what we're looking to do this year is to update our policies and procedures and implement some staff training to ensure that we're covered in those areas as well. I'm happy to take any questions.
I'm going to look at Hilary here.
Yeah, well, no, I read this and thought, my goodness, they've actually done something. I've been banging on for the last 4 years.
I was going to say, it takes 4 years to, anyway,
Yeah.
well done.
So no, I was pleased that
it's
moved forward.
Yeah, it's good to see progress being made. And
I do just wonder if we needed 4 different gateways, whether one would have been achievable.
So I said 4 systems, they're 4 different processes of how to take card payments. They're not necessarily standalone systems. So for example, our information offices, our agent referred payments and our web payments are all provided by one merchant supplier, but they're all separate processes, which is why I listed them separately, but they are one supplier.
Okay. And I think we should just note that you've been hit really by MasterCards.
I think that's what made it happen, isn't it?
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
But it probably gave them a kick to get on with it. Yeah. Okay, so we'll note this, I think. Is that everyone happy with that?
Yes, are we happy?
Yeah, right.
It's not my
Thank
area.
you. Right, we now come to the work plan. I think we should just note that this is, you know, this may change subject to the results of the elections. I mean, you may find someone has a different idea, but anyway, let's at least note this. Has anyone got any comments or anything we want to add in?
Could I just say, Chairman, that the first version that went round of this omitted the May meeting, and I've circulated the updated version. So the next meeting of this committee is the 31st of May. And members may want to note that there will be some audit committee training on the 26th of May. Other than that, nothing to add, Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Right, does anyone else got any questions? No. Okay, no. I would do a couple of things I want to say because this is our last meeting of this council. So I'd like to thank everybody on the committee for their help and support. In particular, I'd like to thank John Ward, who's not here, but John has done 20 years on the audit committee. That deserves a long service medal, I think. And also, people who are on the committee who are retiring, I'd like to thank them. I know that's John Ward and Martin Levitt are not standing again. And good luck to everyone who is standing, and hope to see you all back.
Hope so.
Really?
On the wrong party.
There's no wrong party.
No.
All right.
The wrong audit, whatever.
Yeah, it is what it is. Okay, well, thank you very much. I declare the meeting closed.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.